massive monstrum of what is ahead of us. How do we work through that? A lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns. So what will happen? Because if you take it as one thing, it's unmanageable.
If you had to define FP&A in one sentence, how would you define it?
Being a business partner to various levels of the organization, helping the organization to do better, sound financial decisions.
Things you had to go through to help stand up a new company.
There are so many things that need to be taken care of in all areas. So why are we doing this? So what do we have at the end? That's very important. How do you shape the organization that at the end you don't have to go through big transformation? Try to build that indirectly from the beginning to make sure that once the process is done, the organization is really state of the art.
If you could offer one final piece of advice to be better at FP&A, better business partner, what would that be?
We live in a fast-paced world. You can take so much benefit of it if you have the mindset of it.
FP&A Guy here. Have you ever wanted to level up your FP&A skills? Then check out the FP&A Guy's Ultimate Course Bundle at thefpnaguy.com. That's the FPANDA Guy.com. And use code podcast to save 25%. Get started learning today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to FP&A Tomorrow, where we delve into the world of financial planning and analysis, examining its current state and future prospects. I am your host, Paul Barnhurst, aka the FP&A Guy, and I'll be guiding you through the ever-evolving landscape of FP&A. Each week, we're joined by thought leaders, industry experts, and practitioners who share their insights and experiences, helping us navigate today's complexities and tomorrow's uncertainties. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting your journey in FP&A, this show has something for everyone. This week, I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Jens Gutberlet. I probably got that a little bit wrong, but welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you. I know we got to chat before and thought it'd be great to bring you on the show as we discuss. So a little bit about Jens' background. He's based in Toronto, Canada. He recently moved over from Germany with his family. He studied business with a focus on finance and accounting. He started his career in consulting for a couple years, and that will explain why he might give "it depends" for some answers. And then he worked for the last 15 years in several multinational consumer goods companies, Henkel, Edgewell, Johnson & Johnson, and now he's with Kenvue. He's got profound and broad experience in finance in various FP&A and finance leadership positions, and helped with 2 separation processes and stand-ups of new companies. First at Edgewell, where they separated from Energizer, and most recently at Kenvue, separating from Johnson & Johnson. Brave to do 2 big separations. All right, well, let's jump into it. I like to start with 2 questions. First, if you had to define FP&A in one sentence, how would you define it?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, FP&A, it's very broad, a tool set and many skills that you need to have and can bring in. But really, what it comes down to it is really, for me, being a good business partner, to various levels of the organization, and helping the organization to do better, sound financial decisions and help the organization to develop financially in a good direction. That's how I would define FP&A with all its many tool sets.
I like that. At the end of the day, it comes down to helping the business make better decisions and helping with the financial path, being that partner for them. And so what does great FP&A look like in a function? What are we doing if we're great at FP&A?
Yeah, for me, actually, it's a good question. I mean, what differentiates good from great really in FP&A is, I guess, probably also many other areas, but really is a mindset, right? So the mindset, the willingness to be a great business partner, to influence the entire organization. Actually, the proactivity to understand your business, right? So what are the drivers? How can you influence this? And then support the organization, the people, the teams, right? obviously you need the basics. You need the skills, technical skills, soft skills, but really the differentiator, the difference makes the passion and the energy you bring into it.
I love that about mindset. You think of athletes, and the great athletes always have that mental edge. Yes, they may be blessed with great genetics or athletic ability, but there's tons of people who have great athletic ability that never make it to the level that others with less talent do because of that mindset and that passion. So I really like that. I think to be great at anything, you have to have a passion for it and a love. Otherwise, it's hard to put in the work.
And it also helps you to do the extra mile, right? I mean, it's sometimes hard work. Obviously, you need to do long runs and have to fight through it, and you need to want to do it. And then you push it, and then you're good at it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I need to do a few more long runs. My weight is telling me I haven't been pushing through on the exercise. But all right, so you started your career working in consulting or controlling briefly, then you moved into consulting. Kind of what led to wanting to do consulting? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for me, consulting actually was the perfect environment to start off a career, really. So I only can recommend that to anyone, really. I only did that for a couple of years. I didn't want to do it for long, forever, right? But what I really liked is the fast-paced, steep learning curve, right? I mean, you had the chance as a young professional, specifically, to learn many different companies, many cultures, many different topics. Short, fast pace, and that helps a lot. You learn obviously also the tools of consulting, right? The ability to work under pressure, to cut through complexity, to have the end in mind, solution thinking, right? First principle thinking is one thing that I like very much, really, to complex and volatile or ambiguous problems, right? You find a way to cut through that and come to the essence of it, right? And that helped me a lot actually in my later career, and it also helped me a lot to understand in which direction I want to go, given that I could see in a short time frame so many different things.
It makes a lot of sense, and I've seen a lot of good FP&A people that come from consulting because many of the things you mentioned. I've also seen often investment banking and engineering. The engineering ones have that really good math skills, and so it's interesting to watch. Not to say it can come from anywhere, but I could totally see how consulting, that fast-paced environment, the frameworks you learn, first principles thinking, how you could bring all that to be better at FP&A. That makes a lot of sense. What was there, you mentioned first principles thinking. Was there one or two other key things that you felt like really helped you when you started out in FP&A from consulting?
Being goal-oriented, certainly another one, right? Really know what you are solving for. Right, and be solution-oriented in that way, right? And that helped me. I think that helps a lot of FP&A colleagues to work through complexity towards that target, right? And that structures the work, and that also then reduces a lot of the things which are not necessary, right? I think that's another very important thing which helped me, which learn. And then certainly also the communication piece of it, right? Communication, relationship building, you certainly need to do that. You had the chance as a consultant, and that's a little bit intimidating, right? To work obviously with senior people in the organization on the side, right? And that helps you really a lot to learn how do you phrase messages, how do you communicate to them so that your idea sticks. And they also very often don't like consultants. They don't want to have them here in many cases, right? Like a little bit as with working auditors, you need to have them, but you don't really want them, right? And then learning how to deal with that, convince people about your solution, about your capabilities. I think that's another thing that you can learn very good in that area.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of companies are, why do we have consultants in here? We can just do this ourselves. It's kind of like when the auditor comes, got to talk to this person. But I know what you mean. There's definitely a learning there of how to work with people, especially when it's very clear they don't want you there. There's times they're very open and it can be great, but there are definitely times when it's like, hey, it wasn't my idea that you're here. And it's pretty obvious in the way they respond to you. I've definitely seen a few auditors deal with that and probably been that way once or twice myself, even though I try not to. So I could totally get that. So, you've dealt with some major separations, spin-off, divestitures. I want to spend a few minutes about that. You've been at Kenvue now for a couple of years. You were involved in the creation of them as a standalone company. So can you talk a little bit about what Kenvue does and maybe just start with how that came about?
Yeah. I mean, Kenvue is probably as a company not known to everyone, right? A pretty new company, but I bet everybody knows the products, right? So there are really some iconic brands behind that Kenvue produces and sells, like Tylenol, for example, Neutrogena, Listerine, Johnson's Baby, of course, Band-Aid, so many more. So really very strong, iconic brands, and that's what Kenvue, or the products of Kenvue. So Kenvue was founded as a from its separation from Johnson & Johnson Consumer Health, right? But before division of Johnson & Johnson. And it was then decided and announced in November 2021, actually. Johnson & Johnson wants to separate off their consumer health business into individual company. This company is now founded as Kenvue, and actually now very large global player, selling the products in 165 markets, plus minus, so really around the world, and the biggest pure play consumer health company, right? So really a strong company, and very interesting process that we went through as a company, and I had the chance to support.
I bet it was an interesting process. So how long did it take from kind of when the decision was made internally till the spinoff actually happened?
Yeah. So obviously that's a decision that was taken way above my pay grade, right? So
Of course.
I don't know how long really on board level they were working this through, but actually the announcement to the public and internally in the company was done broadly in November 2021. Yeah, so that's when the whole process started, and then really you can say very important milestone when it was officially the creation of the company was when Kenvue was listed as a publicly traded company, and that was in May 2023. So roughly 1.5 years. So it seems like quite a short time frame, and it was, with all the work that needed to be done. Just imagine how many things, processes, teams, everything needed to be separated. So that's a bit the process. How long it took? It's still going on a bit. So there's still interactions and relationships which are resolving and getting resolved and winded down. There's some TSA management still ongoing, if you know, around that transitional service agreement. So agreements that were put in place to organize this transition. So it's coming down. I think by beginning mid of next year, that's most of this will be resolved. So it's really quite a long time frame that it took to really go through this entire process.
Sure. I mean, 18 months till the NASDAQ. Who knows how long before that? Was it 6 months? Was it a year? Had they been discussing it for years? I'm sure it first came up probably in a couple years ago as an idea, and took a long time before, highest level, they made that decision.
Yeah.
And then you have another, sounds like 1.5, 2 years with some TSAs, transfer service agreements, and trying to really split off where you're truly fully on your own.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a massive process. What was the reasoning they gave for the split? Like, what was the kind of the thinking? Was it just kind of an investment type decision, or what was the logic?
Yeah, that is certainly one reason. But I think thinking behind was really that they came to the conclusion that it's both companies can be better off with a focus on their core, right? If you think about it, consumer goods, consumer health products, and pharmaceutical, medical device products, they are totally different business in most areas, right? And I mean, they had a good time together, and they helped each other for a long time. Very strong and successful company. But I think at the end, it was clear that with a strategic focus, both companies would be better off. And that's, I think, the main rationale that was given to why this is being pursued. And actually, also that's very clearly understandable, right? I mean, you can see that in many areas, and just think about how many regulatory requirements and legal requirements you have when you launch a pharmaceutical product, right? I mean, that's massive.
Yeah, I don't even want to imagine.
Yeah, with lead times of years, right? 10 years. I think it's not, nothing, right? And then a consumer goods company with like such a fast-paced cycle, changing consumer demands, reacting to consumer demands, short lead times, and so on. That didn't fit together. And I think it was a very good decision then to decide that you can create more value financially also, obviously, and be a better company standalone. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I worked at American Express when they sold off, and I left before the official day when they split it, but they had announced it publicly when they spun off their business travel from the card and bank business, right? And so similar type things. They're just, travel is very different from the card, even though for a long time they were very helpful together because, hey, travel with us and use your American Express card to help build the brand, but they just couldn't justify the same investment in travel that it needed as cards. It's like, well, I get a 20% return here and a 6% return there, whatever the numbers are. Just like, why would I invest in this outside of just enough to keep it going? And that's not a healthy position for a business. And I imagine there was some of that as well.
For sure. And obviously that needs to be fit for the right purpose to make decision. Also, for example, when you do investment into IT systems, for example, right? If you want to scale them up, you want to make them as broad as possible. But if you want to cover everything in one ERP, for example, farm business, medical business, and consumer, that doesn't work, right? So you end up then with different system, difficult decisions, investment decisions, and so on. So that's really where it becomes difficult and where it makes sense to focus, clearly.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine in the IT and the tech stack and the different dimensions and things you need to track are just really hard to put all in one system. So it's like, now we have two systems, and it's almost like you're operating, in many ways you are, two businesses in one, which just leads to distractions sometimes. How do you do a really good job when you have very different businesses? And we see it, and some people are successful at it, but it's hard.
Yeah.
So what was the transformation process like for you on the FP&A side? Maybe talk a little bit about kind of that journey and what the process is like, the things you had to go through to help stand up a new company.
To stand up a new company, obviously you need to disentangle the entire organization, right? It sounds actually very easy that you carve out one piece and you have a split off. In this case, that's a technical phrase, I guess, how you bring it to the market. But just underlying, there are so many things that need to be taken care of in all areas, right? I mean, there are contracts that need to be taken apart. There are legal entities that need to be taken apart. There are systems that need to be taken apart. There are all kinds of financial accounts and that need to be taken apart and build up new. And I think that's another thing, that once you take it apart, you also need then to create the new company and set up the new identity, the new values, the new structures, and so on, right? I think that's on a high level what was done. And around the world, there was a lot of entanglement over the years, because there was always the drive for efficiency, right? And you'd be more efficient if you scale up. And that needed to be put into different pieces again, and then in a way that it makes sense for both companies, right? That's a bit, just in a couple of minutes, how this massive process, actually, which was, I think, one of the biggest of its kind, was done, right? So that sounds still easy, but you can I think understand how the devil lies in the details and the complexity where it's coming from.
I am sure. And so kind of, talking devil lies in the details, what for you is maybe the most challenging part, like that you had to spend the most time on, or that really, either stimulated you intellectually or was just a real challenge to figure out? What do you think was kind of the hardest or part for you in that journey?
FP&A Guy here. Today I want to talk about the FP&A Guy's Ultimate FP&A Course Bundle. This bundle includes over 10 hours of content recorded by Ron Montero and myself, many templates, and great lessons to make you a better FP&A professional. The content includes FP&A business partnering, how to manage tough conversations, build world-class relationships, and hold the business accountable. Includes modern Excel, which is a real game changer for the way you'll work in Excel. Excel tables, the gateway to modern Excel. Power Query, a game changer for transforming your manual processes and loading data. And then dynamic arrays. Next, we cover modeling design principles. In this course, we talk about the importance of designing models in a certain way and how important it is that you think about design. And last but not least, driving value through smart analysis. How you can conduct data analysis to be a better FP&A professional. Go ahead and sign up for this bundle at thefpnaguy.com. That's the FP&A Guy.com. Use the code podcast to save 25%. Get started learning today.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the massive scale of the project. Maybe I think about it, what my role was a bit in this process. So I had the chance directly after the announcement actually to jump on a role as a project lead in a region, Europe, Middle East, Africa. I was asked to coordinate, to lead the project management office for the finance activities and helping the organization to work through this complex process, bring the right people in place, bring the topics to the right people, and tracking, coordinating, escalating, resolving challenges. Right? And what I think was very tough for me and the organization was that this massive monstrum of what is ahead of us. How do we work through that, right? Because if you take it as one thing, it's unmanageable, right? And then in short time frame of only 1.5 years, right? Only 1.5 years, but for this, that was small. So that was massive. And I think there was for the entire organization a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknown. So what will happen? Nobody could give the answers for that, and most of the answers needed to be created, right? So I think that was a big challenge for the organization, and then structuring that, bringing that down to chewable bites, right? So that you can really work through that. I think that's then certainly how we work through it, and with a lot of external help, a lot of consultants, a lot of legal advisors, right? Which are necessary for this process for sure, and were very helpful. You work through this process step by step and structure it. But that's also then amazing learning how you can, like a project of this scale, how you can manage it through and take the people along.
Yeah, I imagine, like you said, there was a lot of, you said, consulting, legal, one-time separation expenses on both sides on the P&L, I would imagine.
For sure. Yeah.
Real project that size.
Yeah.
And I imagine a huge part of this, as you mentioned, you had to break it down. You kind of have the phrase I liked as a kid that I always heard was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Right? Big project like that. You just have to slowly work through it. Because if you try to do it all at once, it's just overwhelming and you'll never get there, right?
If you try to do it all at once, you get lost, right? And then you get discouraged, right? Cut it down slice by slice. How do you eat an elephant? That's the right thing. But always have also the vision or the target in mind, right? So that you really know what you're going towards. Have a very clear goal. I think that what they did very well, actually, also to from day one really clearly outline what are we working towards, right? So what is the plane that we are trying to build? That's a nice expression from our senior leadership that we are building a plane while you're flying it, actually, right? So,
yep, I've heard that one, yeah.
And that's actually a little bit a good analogy how it was at the time.
Yeah, I think it is a good analogy because it makes you realize how hard and dangerous and kind of challenging it is. I would imagine, and I'd love to get your thoughts, transformation of the size, huge cultural piece to this of how do you keep people involved, because I'm sure a lot of people are concerned. Anytime there's a spinoff, what will this all mean? And how does this change things? And just that kind of uncertainty, even though there may be excitement that comes with it. So how do you manage the cultural side and the people through a project like this?
I think a lot through the why, right? To explain what is the purpose and the reason why this is being done, and what is way or the goal we want to go to. So why are we doing this? So what do we have at the end? I think that's very important, and that helps then our colleagues to understand. And I think for me, I was more or less closely involved into all this work, so I had a lot of insights into how it's structured, what is coming next. But for many colleagues in the operational units, it was a lot more on now, because many things could not be communicated to them, as I said before, right? Because some of them were not even known yet, right? But I think the good job that was done by the organization is communicate a lot, give the purpose, give the reasons, explain, take them along the journey, and help them to understand what is happening. I think this is very, very critical to keep everyone engaged and take everyone along.
Yeah, so it sounds like I had really good leadership that really focused on, look, why are we doing this? Why is it important? And this is the journey we'll take together versus, and I think we probably all seen it, as soon as you get a project where it's, hey, this is what we're doing. No why, no real explanation, no encouragement. And everybody's like, I'm not sure I buy into this. I'm not sure I even like this idea. And if you don't spend that time to get people comfortable, you're going to be less successful.
Yeah. And you have to listen also to their concerns, right? That you need to understand what is bothering them, what are the fears, right? You need to give people a chance to work with it and be there for them, right? I think that's true for any project and change process.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the most difficult part of change management is the people and cultural stuff.
Right.
Technology is technology at the end of the day. As long as you select something that can meet your needs, and there's many different tools, and you implement it well, you can be successful if you make sure you take care of the people and do the training and other things. But if you don't do that, you can have the best tool in the world and you may not get any adoption.
Yeah. And no one wants to use it afterwards, right?
Yeah, that never happened. So speaking of tools, I imagine you had a lot of work where you had to figure out, okay, how do we spend up the technology for finance and FP&A? Because you're splitting off, and I'm sure there were different tools that made sense to use now that you're your own company versus what Johnson & Johnson used. So talk a little bit about that. How did you kind of work through that process of just the whole technical transformation?
Yeah. I think this changes like these give obviously to an organization the opportunity to also rethink the tools that they need and that they want to use. Yeah. And I think it was very clearly part of the process to understand how can we set up our systems, our ERP system up to success, that we afterwards are stronger and fit for purpose, have a fit for purpose tool and a stronger company. Yeah. So that was very clearly part of the roadmap. Also, what kind of reporting tools you need versus what you used to do before. It is for sure very difficult to do everything at once. I mean, just alone ERP project for a company not in this situation is a very difficult one. But do that together, that makes the challenges tremendously bigger, right? So I think that's very important from my perspective for companies that are going through this process to think that side of the equation very strongly from the beginning and plan that in throughout the process from the beginning, because in the end life goes on, and in the end you need to get, and competition doesn't sleep, right? So you need to be coming out of this process able to run fast, right? And cannot wait 1.5 years and then pick up where you were before. So really important to have that part in. And obviously that gives then another change to the organization. But managing that right, I think that's, if you have like change, you can combine it, right? Then you can also use the benefits of having changes in multiple areas and combine that, so that might even ease then the pain a bit and make it more successful.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm sure there's opportunities to make processes better now that you're getting to select your own software and do things in a way that maybe you thought should have always been done, but didn't make sense in the prior company. because you needed new technology to do it, or just because of the parent company's priorities, whatever it may be. So
you can also sort of do that. You can also have then a chance to cut through like legacy systems, or we do that why we always did it. We didn't touch it, right? I think these kind of things exist in any company, right? But this really gives you the opportunity to tackle those of them, really think through. We do it like this. Is that really the right way? Or is now the time to change it? And that's for sure a strong opportunity that companies should let.
yeah, I would imagine for FP&A, or kind of in general, I know you're on the transformation, but for an FP&A team, it would be an incredibly challenging, exciting, and probably stressful time. A lot of hours of work as you're now trying to redo all your reporting to meet the new company's needs. You're changing some of your budgeting and planning process. You got a whole new organization, sometimes new people you're supporting, but there's the excitement of, hey, we now get, different investment. We can focus on just this business. We may not have to hear all the time, no, that doesn't make sense. We're focusing on other priorities. So, what are the opportunities for FP&A time like this? Because I imagine there's a lot of opportunity to kind of stand out and shine in this if you're committed and passionate. So what do you see as those opportunities for FP&A people when this happens?
I very clearly think that FP&A can play a very strong role in that, right? I mean, with all that you mentioned, and also that the business continues, right? And by running those changes, right? And that's where FP&A can be very strong with the right support, mindset, help. And I think where very strongly FP&A can help is on the one side to explain to the organization what all these kind of things with the financial acumen and the background, explain why is it helping. So what are the good things about the painful work that we're going through, right? What is the outcome that will bring, or the financial benefit, and what will leave us better off afterwards, right? So that's certainly one. And I also think that it's a very strong opportunity for FP&A to rethink their structure and overall finance in an organization, to think through how do we want to be set up afterwards, right? How do we combine different finance functions in a better way? How do we cut through silos, for example, that might have been there before, right? And combine it. How do we also maybe integrate FP&A thinking and financial thinking mindset even more into the business so that they have a stronger financial standing, right? So I think all of this can be very powerful, and I'm really convinced that finance, FP&A has a very, very strong role in this, not only to manage it through, but really to shape the organization for a better future afterwards.
Yeah, and I mean, so what would you tell somebody after having gone through this twice? I know you worked with this, not just Johnson & Johnson. If I have someone listening in FP&A and they're getting ready to work on a divestiture or spin-off, is there one or two pieces of advice you would give them that you've learned through this journey?
Yeah, from an FP&A perspective, or from a finance perspective, really have the new company in mind right from the beginning. So make sure that this is being worked through and considered in the planning and preparation from the beginning. Because, I mean, as we talked about this, there's a lot of distraction, many things that need to be worked on. And it can happen that it's actually rather easy that you then rather focus as an organization on the things that you definitely must do, like you're getting your accounting right, getting your compliance right. And in that, I would say it's very important for FP&A to make sure that what FP&A stands for, consider that directly throughout the process as well, right? And fight for that to make sure that the setup is considered throughout the way, that you come up strong afterwards. To that, maybe also, I think what is my learning generally, I mean, consumer goods is a very rather small margin business in comparison to fund, obviously, right? So there's a lot of more savviness and financial focus needed to structure your P&L and your cash flow, right? I think that's also very important to have that throughout the process in mind. There are many one-time costs there are also many standalone costs, right, that come with these kind of processes, where you have, for example, a new function that you didn't have before, or an efficiency that you had before that's no longer there, right? I think that's also one advice that I would give to anyone working in finance, had that in mind throughout the process. How do you shape the organization that at the end you don't have to go into through big transformation, but try to build that indirectly from the beginning to make sure that also once the process is done, the organization is really state of the art, is very efficient and really fit for purpose and able to run on its own legs, basically.
Looking to level up your career and build skills that make you stand out to FP&A hiring managers? How about earning a certificate from a world-renowned business school? Wharton Online and Wall Street Prep have partnered to create an 8-week online financial planning and analysis certificate program. You'll learn the art of forecasting, analysis, business partnering, and financial storytelling from Wharton Online's world-class faculty, coupled with first-hand exposure to technical and interpersonal skills with real-world applications as practiced in top corporations. Space is limited, so level up your career today and use the discount code TheFPA Guy300 to receive $300 off tuition. That is the FPA Guy 300 to receive $300 off tuition. Learn more by going to wallstreetprep.wharton.upenn.edu.
Yeah, sounds like everyone is really think of not just the technology, not the process, but think of the company, think of the strategic, always kind of thinking what's best for them, for the company as a whole, and look at this as an opportunity. Sounds like, 'cause it's easy to think, oh man, this is just something I have to deal with, versus an opportunity to come out better on the other side. And hearing that makes it sound like, a huge part of this comes down to mindset during this type of time, which we talk about. So maybe talk just a little bit about kind of the mindset you need to have for a project like this.
The mindset in general, the can-do attitude. That's so important, right? You talked about the elephant, right? I think can be overwhelming, right? But turning that into positive, into visionary thinking, into understanding the opportunities that are behind, that is, I think, the important point, to be prepared for it and to get motivated and energized. Just the idea of having a new company, how often does that happen, right? But the idea of being part of that and having a chance to, even at a small scale, shape that and frame that and influence that, I think that's certainly the mindset that helps you to be very motivated to engage in.
Sure. And I would imagine a company, one of the biggest spinoffs we've had, Kenvue. What you guys spin off as is, I know, billions of dollars in revenue for sure.
Yeah.
Right? That's the brands you listed are not small brands.
It's a 15 billion company worldwide, right? So it's a huge company. So, Fortune 500 company, and a very strong player, right? And that once in a lifetime opportunity that I and many of my colleagues certainly had.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, thank you for talking a little bit about the journey. I really appreciate you sharing some of that. And now I'm just going to ask kind of more traditional FP&A question for you. What went over your career? What's your favorite part within FP&A? What do you enjoy most about being in FP&A?
I certainly enjoy that I have a chance in FP&A to influence the business, to work very closely with business teams on various levels. Actually, I enjoyed that very much already in the beginning. So I loved that when I started at Henkel already. They had a similar business partnering mindset, I think, which is very common, especially in consumer goods companies, but abroad, many industry by now, is that you partner with your commercial side. You partner with the marketing team. You partner with the sales team. You partner with the managing director later on, right? At the end, you partner with the CFO, partners with the CEO, right, to make it happen. And I think that's what really is the great thing, and what motivates me so much about FP&A and this kind of work that you have strong technical skills, you have a strong foundation, and then you can really help the business to create benefit, and you can also influence that. Right? So that's certainly a good part.
I agree with you. I love the part that you can influence and partner and make a difference with the business, the relationships and creating value. Funny enough, nobody yet has said their favorite part is budgeting or planning.
And things just need to be done, right? And
even though it's in our title.
expected. Yeah.
But I mean, it totally makes sense, but it's kind of funny. So we're going to move into a section, kind of a standard section where I ask a couple of FP&A questions of all our guests. So the first one, from your perspective, what's the number one technical skill FP&A professionals should master?
Technical skill, for me, that's actually financial modeling and analysis. You need to understand the numbers, you need to make a sense of it, and you need to be able to model them, to do sensitivity analysis, to understand, to do scenario planning, to understand the drivers, what has impact or not. I think that's number one technical skill to me.
Yeah, that is probably one of the most common answers. There's two things that come up the most: spreadsheets, financial modeling. And they go together quite a bit, right? In some ways, they're almost the opposite of a coin. There's differences between them, but they're intertwined. What about soft skill, or as I like to say, human skill?
Yeah, human skills, soft skills. I think very important, very centerpiece is communication. You need to be a good communicator, and it involves various aspects, right? It involves the relationship building. It involves reading the room. It involves being able to message or to frame your message towards the audience, right? Make it fit for purpose. Also adapting your message if it doesn't fly, right? And I think that's very important for FP&A professionals. Because what I've learned over the years, if you're not good at that, then all the good work that you do technically could be for nothing, right? Because you don't land it, right? You don't have the influence that you could have, right? So, and I think there it comes together what really good FP&A professionals on the soft skill side can excel.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's around the communication, and that's a lot of the things: the business partnering, relationship, active listening, showing empathy, storytelling. I mean, when you put it under that broad communication umbrella, there's a lot of things that can fit there, but you have to have that. You have to be able to influence and communicate with the business. Otherwise, like you said, you could do fabulous technical work, but if you can't explain it, it goes to waste most of the time.
And you still need the foundation, right? You need all that, right? Plus, that makes then the difference. And I think that's very clear.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, this last one is kind of a fun one. I love to see what people say. If you could wave a magic wand, so you're the genie, whatever you want to call it, for the day, and change one thing about FP&A, what would you change?
Interesting one. Yeah, I think the one thing is, and actually we are getting there already, not fast enough, but for me, that's generative AI, right? I mean, really, you said about budgeting. Nobody said that ever, right? These kind of things. Preparing budgets, doing reconciliations, doing basic analysis and deviation analysis, kind of things. If we could get that all automated, right, which is promised, and they're in the beginnings, but not to the level that I think needed, that would be for me the one that I would use my wish for. Then to focus on all the other fun stuff, right, of making then the right decision, story, communication, changing the framing, that so that will be it. And hopefully we're getting there, but someday maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're definitely making progress. Still got a long ways to go, but I get it. Maybe wave the magic wand, get rid of all the drudgery, and focus on the fun stuff. I like it. All right. So this is the get to know you section where we ask a few personal questions to get to know a little bit more about you. So a favorite hobby or passion, what do you like to do when you're not working?
I love to spend time with my kids and my family. I have 3 kids, a teenage daughter and 2 boys, 12 and 10, and spending time with them. That's especially now, this age is great because we can do so much things together. with my boys, a lot of sports. They are very passionate soccer players, very active. That's a lot of fun. I even coached the team of my oldest son for the last 5 years, right? So that was a lot of fun coaching the team. I tell you, quite a leadership experience, right? One thing that I haven't seen like that in my professional career, making sure that 28 boys follow you and develop, right? So that was fun. So really, it is spending time with them, right? And I wish I could even do even more of that with them.
Sure. I love that, spending time. And you mentioned the leadership skills. I was a Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts leader for years. Been on many campouts with kids and, trying to teach them to tie knots or watching them work with the hatches or cutting wood. And yeah, you definitely get some leadership opportunity going on a 50-mile hike with, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids for a week in the wilderness.
But we need to add different skills, right? And they help you also in your business life, right? Because, for example, that you convince them and show them that it is fun, do it with fun, and then you get them, and not with like rules and we do it like this. Why? Because we do it like this.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some things that come into work, right, for sure. If you could recommend a book to our audience, what book?
Actually, I have two books which I look very often into, and that helped me a lot all of my careers. The one is from James Clear, Atomic Habits, if you know it. It's about the power of small changes, about consistent changes, and the compounding effect of this, right? And that's for me really one thing that I try to look on, and it helped me a lot to develop in my career, because I think if you do it in small steps but consistently, you have so much more chance to get to a great result rather than trying to do the big bangs, right? Which are mostly scary and hard work. But breaking that down, that's very, very helpful. And the other one is, I think it's a little bit older book, but not that much, from Daniel Goleman. It's called Focus, right? And as the title says, it's around focusing, right? Really making sure to focus on what you do. And I feel that's getting more and more important in the environment we're in, with all the distractions and the opportunities. You need to focus on what you really do right now, and then you'd be good at it.
Yeah, we live in a world where it's so easy to get distracted. It's all short-term, instantaneous social media and sound bites.
Yeah. So easy to be distracted and so hard to remain focused.
Yeah, I've had it the last day or two, a number of times. All right, here's my phone. I'm distracted. So this is kind of a fun one I like to ask. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was your kind of career aspiration as a kid?
So first, actually, when I was like 10, 12, I wanted to become a lawyer, right? And it was until the point that I noticed that not every lawyer job is like Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men. You know that movie? Really, that was my view of a picture of a lawyer, and I thought, this is it. I want to be like this. But then I noticed it's not like that. Now, but honestly, then actually, very early on, I wanted to work with people, want to be some kind of a leader in groups, create structures and organizations. So very early on, I had the understanding of working in business and organizations. So that's very, very early on. I had the plan to go in that direction one way or the other.
Love it. And I laughed when you said lawyer, because as a kid, my reasoning, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer because I liked arguing.
All right.
And trying to win an argument. And I thought, that's what really what a lawyer did. As I got older, it's like, not so much.
Maybe there are other aspects to it as well.
So, all right, if you could have dinner with one person in the world today, who would you take to dinner?
Wow. Also probably many. One that I would like to is Simon Sinek. Would love to have an evening. I mean, it's so great to just hear him talking and the way he communicates, and that's great. But also the ideas that he brings across. We talked about why, right? I think that's one of his core themes. But also the idea that he brings across a lot is about companies and life being an infinite game, right? So that it's always continuing, and it's not like you get there and then you're done, right? These kind of ideas I would really love to talk to him about and Probably that would end up in him talking all the time and the entire time, and I'm just listening. I think that's how it could be, but I would love to have that dinner with him, I guess.
Sometimes those are the best ones when you get to just listen and learn and you don't have to say much. So I hear you on that. All right. Well, I have one last question, then we'll wrap up here. If you could offer one final piece of advice to our audience to be better at FP&A, better business partners, what would that be?
Yeah, next to all the skills that we talked about, I think being flexible, being agile, and adapt to all the changes that are coming, right? I mean, we live in a fast-paced world, which I think is even going to accelerate. And I think you can take so much benefit of it and shape it in such a good way if you have the mindset of agile and embrace it and take it on. And that's what I would say also to FP&A professionals, right?
I like it. When you said be agile, be flexible, I thought of Excel, right? It's the most flexible tool out there, but you can tell I work in finance when that's what comes to mind. But thank you for sharing that. Thank you for joining me. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. It's been fabulous. If people want to learn more about you or maybe get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. So they will find me there. And
sure, that's kind of what I figured. That's usually the answer. We'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, and excited to share this with my audience. This has been fun chatting about your journey and divestiture. So thank you for carving out some time.
Very welcome, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Of course. Thanks, Jens.
Thanks for listening to FP&A Tomorrow. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review on your podcast platform of choice. This allows us to continue to bring you great guests from around the globe. As a reminder, you can earn CPE credit by going to earmarkcpe.com, downloading the app, taking a short quiz, and getting your CPE certificate. To earn continuing education credits for the FPAC certification, take the quiz on Earmark and contact me, the show host, for further details.